So I'm just gonna get a bit of something to eat here. So
you gotta eat, gotta have that energy, Chris.
Gotta have that energy, right? Oh, folks, hey, we're live. Apparently, I guess I'll have to save this for 5 seconds from now. I am your host, Dash V, and with me today I have Kyle.
Hey, everyone.
Also known as Teen Wolf, and we have the Miss Lizzie Hedgehog.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
So I gotta say, we're gonna have two topics that we're gonna cover today. The first topic is gonna be about Toys R Us, and them going out of business. In case anybody hasn't heard about it, so I've got a few, I guess, kind of questions and comments, and I'll get your feedback on that, Kyle, and your feedback on that, Lizzie. But then also, and we're gonna do our best, folks, to not get political about it, but want to talk about this violence in video games thing. But we'll start off with the Toys R Us. I guess I have to start by saying I'm not really feeling it. Like, I don't really like. I'm not torn up. I'm not sad. I'm not depressed. Lizzie made the very correct and astute observation that when I was a kid, no, Toys R Us was not part of my backstory. We didn't have the money for a place like Toys R Us. And then later, when I got older, and I first actually started going to a Babies R Us before my kid was born. We bought all of our stuff actually there was Toys R Us and there was Babies R Us. And we went to Babies R Us and actually bought my son's crib, bought his dresser, literally bought just about everything except for his clothes from Babies R Us. And it wasn't so much like loyalty in the brand so much as just like, here's everything that's related to like babies, like right there. It may not be the cheapest, but it's all right there. We could just go right down the list, get what we need, get out, and we're good. I gotta say though, in terms of Toys R Us, the handful of times that I've gone there, I think I've maybe gone there 10 times in my entire lifetime, and that might be overestimating. Every time except for one, it was as a last ditch attempt to see if they had something that no other store had. And they also did not have it. So, so really, the pricing just never seemed to be, competitive to me to online shopping ever. There certainly wasn't, like, I don't feel like when I go to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, I'm hoping to find somebody there that I can ask them, hey, like, should I be using like a oil-based paint for this or whatever. It just didn't seem like I'd need that kind of help, like looking for toys and stuff. The one time though that I did go there deliberately, they did this, what I thought was really cool. They did this activity where kids could come in and they had like this huge pile of Legos and you could just come in and build anything for like an hour or whatever. And when you were done, you could take the Legos that you'd built with you. My son, right? He did not win points for creativity, but oh my goodness, was he thinking the right way? He just made this giant brick like this big of Legos and was like, I'm taking it, right? And so like for a while there, like half his Lego collection was all the same yellow brick, right? Like literally thousands of these yellow bricks that he just sat there for the hour and packed together as many of those 2x4 bricks as he could possibly put together in an hour, and then just walked out of the store with it. So, wow. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I remember the cartoon, or not the cartoon. I remember the commercials and things like that. Certainly I remember the tune, right? Maybe we'll even sing it a little bit later in the show. But, and I mean, I guess as far as like having a store where it's all full of toys, right? And you could just kind of like pretend for a moment you're a kid or whatever. It'd be kind of cool. But for me, if I was to go there now, especially, I'm just going to see toys that look way cheaper, that are way more expensive, but look way cheaper than any toys I had as a kid. And, I'm not really going to, it doesn't really resonate with me. So, but I see a ton of people like having lots of strong nostalgia for Toys R Us. And I'm wondering, like, is that nostalgia should that nostalgia be enough to keep the store around? I personally think no. I think that its time is long overdue. But I'm interested in your thoughts, Kyle, and then Lizzie, we'll get to you.
Yeah, so and actually Retro Sports Gamer, thanks so much for joining us. He actually has a comment in here that I'll read and I'll kind of get into mine. So one thing he mentions says, let's be honest, most retail businesses will suffer the same fate due to online sales. So obviously bringing up that difference between the brick and mortar storefronts and the online storefronts. And so, for anyone who maybe hasn't followed this issue too much, I think it was maybe last winter before Christmas, we had saw some stuff about Toys R Us declaring bankruptcy and some other things. And actually, I'd commented to Lizzie, I think, on Facebook on this, that the reason they had started doing that last year. I can't really explain this in detail. I'm not an economist kind of guy. But essentially, that was to give them some ability to stock their store shelves essentially for Christmas, to be able to get some goods on those. That way, the people who are actually making the goods wouldn't be afraid to like send them stuff. Is how I understood that. So essentially, letting them stock those shelves. I assume with this latest round of closures that maybe that didn't work out so well, that they weren't able to make those numbers. And actually, I'm coming from the same position as Chris, that I never really visited Toys R Us when I was a kid. One reason because it wasn't local, but the other I think is that it was kind of just more expensive than places like Walmart, and maybe there were specific products there that you could get at other places, but for us, I don't think there was ever really any reason to kind of go there where you couldn't get the same toy for a cheaper price at somewhere like Walmart. So I really don't have that nostalgia for it as well. I don't think I've been there since I was like 11 or 12, maybe at the most. So, and I think they're bringing up a good point with that difference between online and storefront as well. Personally, I still like to be able to go in a store and look at a product, just because it can be hard to tell exactly what you're getting when you're looking online. There aren't always good size comparisons, and it's not always easy to tell if the product is like cheaply made or if it's quality. But it seems like it's just one of those things where they're going to be more selective about storefronts where they're putting them, just like Amazon starting their own storefronts, but they're going to be in very carefully placed places. So now, Lizzie, I know you have a very different experience, it sounds like, from Chris and I as far as that goes, and maybe you can provide some insight on your side of it.
Well, kind of say for you guys, when I was little, I didn't really shop at Toys R Us because they were expensive. The nearest one was like probably like 7 miles away from us. But you know, my parents didn't really go there because I mean, why do you take a little kid to a toy store? I mean, they're like, no, because guess what? At the time, the Nintendo, you could buy that in the mall. Like back in the day, Dillard's and Sears actually used to sell the Nintendos. And, then when the Sega time came around, same thing, it was at Sam's Club, stuff like that. Like there really wasn't anything really that I needed at Toys R Us unless it was something like the like this thing, which is an exclusive to Toys R Us. Unless it's an exclusive toy, I really didn't have any reason to go in there. I mean, I do go in there because they do sell Sonic toys because for some reason Walmart, Target doesn't have them. Toys R Us has them. So I have a reason now to go because that's where Sonic is.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I'm like, something. It's actually cheaper on Amazon.
Yeah.
Or toywiz.com or something. And you're like, I know I'm here, but it's like $8 cheaper and I get free shipping with Amazon. So
right.
Of course you're going to go to Amazon, you're going to go to Toy Wiz, you're going to go to Entertainment Earth and all these other websites that have the stuff you want because Toys R Us is just too expensive. And now for me, last year I worked at Toys R Us around the holiday season. And I was a cashier. I was like their fastest cashier. I was bilingual, I could speak English, speak Spanish, and none of that mattered to them. Their only interest was you need to sell the credit cards, and I had to sell like 10 a day.
Wow.
And they were like, you need to push them. And I go, but I can't force them to get a credit card, open up a credit card. They go,
Right.
well, it doesn't matter. You just ask them before and ask them after, ask them in between. I'm like, I was like, okay, sometimes I would get maybe two or three. And one customer was like, be honest with me, do you get in trouble if you don't sell these? And I go, well, honestly, they told me yes. They go, okay. And the lady tried to open up an account, but it wouldn't let her because she didn't have enough credit. Now,
Yeah.
now that was a very pain in the butt because that'd also be held against me, saying that even though I
Mm,
tried to get these things, it doesn't meet what Toys R Us wanted. And I remember the manager was very harsh to me, told me that if you don't make this quota, you're not gonna have a job here after Christmas. And
wow.
I did my best I could, but I mean, you're kind of like, I can't force a customer. And if you see how much interest is on that damn card, you're gonna be glad you didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, all of you out there who have a Toys R Us credit card, you better pay that little sucker off, because if this place goes bye bye, I don't know what's gonna happen to your credit card. So you better get that fixed.
Well,
But
I think they'll be all right with the credit cards. I think usually they're just kind of, fronting for Visa or MasterCard or something like that.
yeah,
And
but
I
the
think that
thing
those companies
is,
will stand by them, but
yeah, but I mean,
more
when I worked there, here's the other thing. It's like six aisles of nothing but Legos. Like, you've got the
Oh,
yellow Legos, then you've got the girl Legos, then you got the boy Legos, then you got like kid, like little toddler kids. You have all these different versions of Legos, and then you got the black diamond or whatever it's called section, which is for adult collectors. Like the really fancy stuff like Halo and all those other things are over there for adults, not for kids. It's for adults. And then you've got like eight aisles dedicated to Hasbro, this huge section of nothing but Star Wars, all these aisles just Barbie, and you're sitting there like, what? You know what? I came here for Sonic and for Nintendo and things like that, and you have them shoved way over there in the corner, which was very annoying. And then like they don't even have people who work in their departments. Like whenever I try to get to the electronics section, sometimes once in a while they would have a good deal on video games. But you have to be smart enough to look on eBay and Amazon and stuff to compare prices too and say, now if this is a buy one get one free, am I getting a good deal? You want to look at all stuff too. But what I always saw is Toys R Us did not treat Sonic very well. Sonic would always be in the video game section, but like in the clearance section, they would have him shoved in this little section or on this teeny tiny little aisle that big, and like in between the Secret Life of Pets and something else. So Sonic was always mixed into those little things. But they actually did not treat things like video game related stuff very well. It was mostly Legos, Hasbro. All those people took over all the aisles, and honestly, what my manager told me also was, you don't understand. We have to pay for all these things. These companies pay for it too. Like I remember last year reading that Mattel was going to sue Toys R Us if they close because they're like, no, we need you guys to be open because Mattel's suffering too. But I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you have eight aisles dedicated to this damn Barbie. There is nothing in this world that's going to make me buy your crap here because I can buy that same Barbie for $8.99 at Walmart. You're not going
yep.
to make me pay $25.99. You're not going to make me buy it. That's the way I saw it at in the toy section. And don't forget Disney. Disney hoards all these aisles too. So the thing is, it's too much. It's too big a toy store now. It's too much because you got so many aisles dedicated to Barbie and Hasbro and Disney stuff, and you're like, honestly, if you're smart, like my mom would be like, that same Disney doll, she's at Walmart for $8 less. And my mom be like, don't tell me you buy stuff here. I go, Mom, I only buy Sonic. And she knows that. She told me, if you ever buy
yeah.
anything else here, you'll get in so much trouble because I'll buy it for you somewhere else. But
Well,
yeah,
you mentioned something. Retro
mhm,
Sports Gamer said the same. He mentioned the same thing earlier in the chat, and it's totally true. I've done it. I've done it too. Kyle, have
mhm.
you done this? He says Retro Sports Gamer says people use the stores to look at the product, then buy it online. Many times straight from their smartphone in the store. I know I've done this, and
Yes.
I'm not ashamed of it. Right? Like if you know for a fact, right, that you're that you have to compete with these online retailers and you're not being cost competitive with those online retailers, I think that's your own fault, right? So one of the things I thought that Best Buy actually does, pretty well is Best Buy has started. They know that you can buy movies online and that you can buy them digitally and all this other stuff, but they've done these really awesome steelbook editions of classic movies, right? Fifth Element steelbook edition, um, um, Christmas Story steelbook edition. They've done all these steelbook editions of like Beetlejuice and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and things like that, where you can only get the steelbook through Best Buy. So even if you decide to go online, you got to go online through the Best Buy thing. And then a lot of times when you're ordering and stuff, and they're ringing you up at the register or whatever, now by and large they're ringing you up through the Best Buy. They have an app on their point of sale system, and even when you're buying stuff in the store, they're racking it up through the Best Buy website. So Best Buy has kind of got a leg in both, areas there. I know that Toys R Us also had like a website, and certainly it's not like I think every major retailer right now has a website, but I guess it really gets down to, do you integrate it as part of the experience, or do you just have it just because everyone else has it? And I always felt like, when I went to Toys R Us, I never really felt like there was a cohesion between the website and being in the store. Neither one of them seemed to really have a consistency in terms of like deals and things like that. I never really felt like one of them was giving me a feel for what I would expect if I walked into the local Toys R Us, that kind of thing. Even though they had like store search and all this other stuff, versus Best Buy, I thought Best Buy did a really good job with, they have reviews and stuff. So there'd been times where, I would go to Best Buy, see something, be like, oh, wow, that looks really interesting. And then I'd go home and I'd go to search for it and find out, oh, they actually made a deal with the maker of that camera or that, action figure, or, that particular movie, to where you can only get it at Best Buy. And then I go ahead and I read, what's cool about the website though is I could read the reviews, because the same products on their website. And then, I could actually read the reviews and see, what people thought about it. Oh, this is a really crappy camera, or, oh, this is a really good, video card or something like that. And then you could actually figure out like, well, just because it's exclusive to Best Buy doesn't mean it's any good. So there'd be times that actually I applaud Best Buy in some ways, and then I'll criticize them in just a moment. So what I thought they did good was I could go to the store, see something that I wouldn't normally see just searching Amazon. I wouldn't actually see it unless I was browsing Best Buy's inventory, because that's the only place I'm going to see it. That's pretty smart in terms of them positioning themselves against heavy hitters like Amazon. What I thought, I was just going to say real quick, what I don't like about Best Buy, right? So I can go to Best Buy, see something, leave, think maybe I'll find a better deal, and then find out I can't. And then I can still read reviews and all that other stuff, but it's in their space. End up going back to Best Buy like the next day after work or something and pick up the movie or pick up the thing. One of the things I don't like though is I'm at Best Buy. I know why I'm there. I know what I plan to get. I go through the aisle. I get to the area I'm supposed to be. I'm trying to find the thing. And somebody like, hey, sir, are you an Xfinity customer? Dude, get the hell away from me. Like, I am not here to talk about my cable plan. I'm here to buy, Terminator Genesis in, 4K with this special Best Buy Steelbook, right? Like, so, but this gets to another thing that Retro Sports Gamer said, and then I'll pass it back to you, Lizzie. But he mentioned when you talked about like, Toys R Us, like push the credit cards. I think the reason for them having you do that is the same reason Best Buy is letting Comcast and other, vendors in their store, like talking to their customers. It's because they're not making enough, apparently, at just selling wares in their storefronts. So they have to have these partnerships with these other folks, and they have to have these other gimmicky things to kind of make the bottom line. That right there, I think alone is a real, to me, that's a real red flag, right? Like, there's nothing to me more annoying than being at Best Buy, knowing what I want to get, and then having somebody totally randomly come up to me, all bubbly and cheery, to try to sell me cable plan. And I'm polite, oh, I already have it, blah blah blah. I have every possible feature that you could try to sell me, and I'm good, thank you. Right? I'm very happy with the service, and then I send them on their way, regardless of whether I have any of the stuff that they're selling, regardless of whether or not
Mhm.
I'm happy with the service. I grab my movie, I go to the front, and I check out, and I
Yeah.
leave. But I don't. I mean, to be honest, I guess those things are still there. Like you go to the Amazon website and they have up at the top, hey, apply for a credit card and get $10 off this purchase or whatever, right? Or there's banner ads or whatnot. But I guess it's just way easier for them to not interrupt the experience, right?
Mhm.
Versus, if I'm out in public, I'm a friendly person. I don't mind talking to somebody. But I don't want to, I don't go into a store. I don't go into a Best Buy store expecting somebody to try to upgrade my cable internet or push me to get a credit card. I go there expecting
Yeah.
to get a movie, possibly get a special edition of something that's only available there, get an extended
Mhm.
warranty from a brick and mortar that I know I can come back to. That's another thing I think Best Buy sometimes does really well. They'll give you an affordable price on insuring something effectively, like a monitor or something like that. And I find it really useful for those things. But they're really turning me off with this whole going there and just having people randomly come and try to chat me up to sell me services. It's bad enough that when I
Yeah.
walk out, I got to get bombarded by people wanting me to sign surveys and buy cookies and do all this stuff. But like while I'm in the store, you think you're safe in the store, and then these people come up to you and you're like, what the literal hell? Like, get away from me right now. Like you want to say that, but you're still trying to be polite. You don't want to make a scene. So no, I'm good. No, really, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Right. I just want to look at a fucking movie. I don't want to upgrade. I don't want to get a security system. I don't want to, buy a new cell
Yeah.
phone. I don't want to switch to AT&T. Right. John Legere would have like
Yep.
a fit.
Mm.
Hey,
Oh well.
sir, I see you're buying a Nintendo Switch. You know what? You could also switch your cable provider.
Right, exactly. It's like Clippy, right? Like Microsoft found out pretty quickly when you're typing a letter, the last thing you want is somebody to come in and interrupt you, right? And hey, I see you're writing a letter to your mom. Would you rather write a dissertation on violence in video games? Like, no,
No.
Clippy, go the hell away. Like, what are you talking about? Right. I see you're sending a Christmas card. Would you rather write your congressman? Clippy, I swear to God, I'm gonna hurt you.
Flippy.
No, I've been lucky. I haven't had that issue at my stores. Actually, there's a really cool guy at our local Best Buy. I gotta give him props.
Mhm.
He not only helped me with this microphone, but he also helps me with our cell phone stuff as well. And he's been super awesome. And like for people like that, I would definitely go back to a store. But usually, I just find that the problem is that somewhere has it cheaper, and I don't want to pay even like a couple bucks extra just to get it from a different store. Now, personally, I'm still one of those people who is going to enjoy having that physical storefront just because really I don't buy stuff online. I like to actually be able to go there, get my products, and then like instantly bring it home and use it. I don't like
Mhm.
having to spend the money and then wait for that downtime between the use.
Yeah, and
So,
you like the bonus of coming home with an unplanned for HBO subscription,
yeah.
right? But
Uh,
Lizzie,
yeah.
I don't think that you'd finished on some of the other your
Well,
other inputs there.
well, like some things that I remember when I was working there that Toys R Us had changed. Like Toys R Us used to do price comparison, but they dropped that, and that was an issue. And then when I worked there, I remember when the employees told me, honestly, she goes, you want to be honest, this store is dead. When the holidays aren't here, when it's not, cause things whenever people come, people do what Walmart does, the layaway, and you'll see
Mhm.
like boxes and boxes everywhere full. And they said that most of the time people order stuff and they're paying for it, but then they'll come back and say, you know what, I don't want this after all anymore. But she said the only time it's busy is during the holiday time. After that, it's dead. She said that their store makes about 1,000 a week to a month. That's about it. That's why also the stores are doing so badly because the rest of the year they're ghost town is what she was
Yeah.
telling me. is that they really
Yeah.
don't get anyone, and a lot of times it's returns. Like it's returns from Christmas, like those stupid egg-looking things. You remember with the dumb thing inside that hatches? You don't know what the heck is in there. Those things were a pain in the ass to find. Remember,
Aliens?
along with the no, it was like an egg that you hugged and you cuddled, and then it would
Oh,
hatch.
yeah. I forget what those are called, but that was like that really big toy this year, wasn't it? You
Yeah.
said? Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's like no one really cares anymore. But like it was such a huge thing, and people would go crazy for it, and then people
Right.
would try to return it and all this. And it's just I always saw more returns than purchases,
Yeah.
and that's why another reason why Toys R Us is doing so bad because so many people are turning everything around because they're like, you know what, I'm gonna return this bike. I can get it $100 cheaper at Walmart. I can get it $100 cheaper at Target, whatever it
Yeah.
be. I mean, that's what they're doing so bad. I mean, I'm kind of sad that they're gonna go, but it's kind of like, when I worked there, I didn't have a very very good experience. I was kind of treated like dirt. I mean, you would think we'd be all happy from back in the days when my mom used to be the housekeeper for the Toys R Us warehouse that was here in Houston, and they love my mom. They treat my mom so well, but my mom was like, yeah, they were great, but they paid her like about $10 an hour. But when I worked there, I got paid 7.25 an hour, so they didn't really care about me. But
Yeah.
you're like,
Gosh.
you're like,
You
wow.
should
I
have you
mean, I
should have
mean,
picked up a broom and given yourself a raise.
I should have, but
Now
it's
one of the
kind of,
things that you mentioned too, though, Lizzie,
uh-huh.
and it kind of made me really think about, because I know we've talked a lot about, like, okay, online retail versus brick and mortar, and I don't know if that exclusively is it so much as, um, I mean, I'm sure that's a big part of it, but I think another part of it I hadn't really considered until you mentioned, like, they got Barbies, they got this, they got that. Like, the last time I went to a Toys R Us, which
Hmm.
actually was like, I want to say it was like a year or two ago. So it was
Hmm.
fairly recent, but not like yesterday.
Hmm.
And the reason I haven't gone back, I don't really expect to see anything significantly different in the store. Like, at this point, I know what a board game looks like. I know what a card game looks like. I know, Hungry Hippos. I know what a bicycle looks like. Like, all the things that I could go to a Toys R Us for, a baseball glove, a
Hmm.
frisbee or whatever. It's like, at this point, 40 years old, it's like I've seen all of that stuff. Like, if I need to actually take a look at it, I could take a look at it in real life. Um, or I could take a look at it online. It's not really going to radically impact my decision of whether or not I'm going to buy that particular, entertainment artifact, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think what's really interesting is that there was a time, when I was a kid, certainly, even though we didn't go to Toys R Us, we went to other places like Kmart and KBC and, James Way.
Oh,
And I don't know
James
if
Wade.
these ring a bell with anybody here on the show, or if I'm just plain out dating myself. But um, the point was, we'd go to department stores and everything, and I would enjoy going down the toy aisle because I didn't know what I was going to see. Right? There's all
Hmm.
this wonder, all this excitement of, like, what's going to be there? What am I going to encounter? Right? All this other stuff. And I guess right now it's just kind of like, I know it's going to be there, right? The same kind
Hmm.
of toys that I've seen for the last 40 years. I don't really feel like entertainment in general, like toys, have really done much to. I mean, we're still talking about Barbie, we're still talking about My Little Pony, we're still talking about Ninja Turtles and Transformers.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
really? Like, this is right? 40 years have gone by, and, like, the best you've got is, like, stuff from my childhood. And while the nostalgic part of me really kind of appreciates that, the bigger kid inside of me still wants to see something new, which is something,
Hmm.
that I think Nintendo does decently well. I know that I'm constantly, harping on Nintendo, and I have my strong opinions about the Switch, which I stick by. I think it's way overhyped. I think that it's the library. I said all last year 2018 will be a great year for the Switch. I take it back, folks. Looks like we're waiting for 2019. So hopefully Switch
Hmm.
doesn't become the Wii U part 2. But one of the things, so my opinion of the execution of the Switch aside, I think Nintendo's done a really good job of, when they come out with, when they really put their mind to it, they really are able to create an experience through a game or a game system that reminds me for a time of how I felt when I was a kid and I saw the Nintendo Entertainment System commercials, and I walked into a store that had the World of Nintendo logo and all this other stuff, and I begged my parents for like, a Nintendo Entertainment System, and my sisters did too. Like Nintendo is able to, and the reason that I get frustrated, honestly, is that Nintendo does it so well, but they do it completely inconsistently that it seems like it happens by accident rather than on purpose. Before I used to think they were like so smart because it just seemed like they're always like heavy hitting. But now as I'm older and I really kind of look at things, they make these awesome products and then they make them in such a low quantity that like most of their fans are just like, frustrated and empty-handed. Meanwhile, other stuff that they printed, like, dozens of, nobody wants, right? And you can find them, all over the place. So it really kind of frustrates me. Things like, we eat up things like Super Mario Maker, and yet we don't see any other games at all like it, even like announced or even like given more than like maybe we'd have to talk about whether or not it would make sense to do that. Are you friggin' stupid? Like, make a Zelda Maker, and dude, you could print money. Like I don't know how much more clear we can be that we want a Zelda Maker. Get your head out of your ass and give us a Zelda Maker, right? Give us a Metroid Maker, right? Like, why Nintendo? Why don't you want my money? So, but every now and then you will get something like that. You'll get like Mario Maker and you'll be like, this is why I love Nintendo, right? Because they'll just reinvent themselves in some way, but they do it in a way that reminds you of those older things. I have yet to go into a toy store or a Walmart or anything like that, or a Best Buy, and have this experience where I'm like, wow, it's like I'm a kid again, right? Like it just doesn't. And I think that's the feeling that we want. Like if I'm going to physically get up, get in my car, go somewhere, go through traffic, deal with people trying to sell me stuff, do all this other stuff, I better be able to go into that store and they better be able to do something that gives me an experience that kind of like motivates me to make a purchase. And where that does happen is online, right? Because it'll start with I hear about this product, and then it will turn into I start Googling stuff, I start searching stuff. Maybe I watch a couple of videos, I talk to some people about it, maybe we have a show, and then the series of stuff happens that gets me jazzed about that particular thing.
Yeah.
I feel like the storefronts used to be where that would happen. Like you'd find it first in the store, like, oh, I didn't know that this even existed, or I didn't know that, right? Like you didn't have like right now, you can go to a page, I think it's like page 3 or 4 on Game Informer, and you can see all the releases that have been announced for the year and when they drop. I don't need to go to the store to be looking out for something. I know the day that it's going to be there, and if I want to have it that day, I should pre-order it from Amazon, and it'll ship to my house that day.
Yeah, well, it's just that
So,
we've been blessed with so much now, so it's kind of like it's not the same feeling like back in the early 80s, where like you had to go to a store to go get the new Nintendo game that you wanted. It's like
yeah.
now it's like everything comes to you. Like everything's in your face, everything comes to you.
Yep.
My cat, sorry, that
No,
was a
you're
cat.
you're right. You're right. Like you're gonna hear about it on
Kitty.
Facebook, right? You're gonna see it on YouTube, and you're gonna pre-order on Amazon, like
Yeah,
all in that one shot.
yeah,
Now,
and
if
and to
Toys
be
R Us,
honest, huh?
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I was saying, and to be honest, Toys R Us hires stupid people. I mean, they don't know what they're
I really
talking
kind of,
about.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you're gonna work in a damn toy store, know the toys. Like if you work in electronics, please know something. Don't be like, oh, well, I don't have the key. I gotta get the key from the manager. It's like if
Yeah.
that's all you can tell a customer, it's kind of like, no, no.
Well, I think that's a
Try to.
red flag too of, like I think part of what's happened is the expense of owning a space and stocking that space and having people running that space, right? The margins have become so thin on some of these things. Sony says we're going to sell the PlayStation at this much money. And the retailer, if they do sales or whatever, they basically have to figure out like how much of their, you know, overhead do they want to lose, you know, and sometimes maybe the person that they're selling on behalf of, like Sony or whatever, says, oh, hey, we're going to give you this deal, like for the next week, you can sell it at this price or something like that. But because they want to, you know, make numbers or something like that. But a lot of times the prices for these products are like baked in by the folks that they got it from. And so they know that they've got this fixed point that they can make the money on. And I think where Amazon excels is Amazon's got the muscle and the I guess breadth where they can just say like, look, we're going to load it all up. We're going to have it in a warehouse where we don't care where the warehouse is located. We don't care what the warehouse inside looks like as long as we can find these products, keep them safe and keep them dry. And the only people we got to hire are people that can run forklifts and put stuff into boxes, right? And we're golden versus Walmart, you know, and Toys R Us and all this stuff. They have to worry about like what the store looks like. Some, like to your point, Lizzie, somebody has to come in and clean the store and, you know, make it all presentable. If the front door doesn't work, they got to hire a maintenance person to kind of like, you know, you can't just keep it propped open, you know, like, so you have all these logistical maintenance issues, I think, with a public available storefront that make it super expensive. And part of it is the user experience, but I just don't know that the razor thin margins that they have to work with, because it costs money to train people, right? Like you're not people that know all about video games or that know all about toys or whatever. I mean, if you know about it to a professional level, you probably don't want to work at a Toys R Us for minimum wage, right?
It was just Christmas money, man. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, if you know enough about the toys to be designing the toys, you're gonna go design the toys, right? Probably. But you know, so I think, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with these jobs being like stepping stones into other jobs and things like that. But I am with you, Lizzie, that like if they're not going to come in with that experience, well, then there has to be some kind of training, right? Or some kind of regular refresher of, hey, here's what's coming up. It's Pokemon, and this is why this is a big deal. And like show them a video and get them, like, you know, communicate to them the importance of like, get the customer hyped. Like, this is what this can do or that can do. And I think, frankly, I think some of these places need to like have a discussion with Tom because I think Tom nailed it, right? Like, if you're going to have an experience, even back in the day before we had the internet, right? Now that I'm thinking about it more, I actually had the experience at home almost every time, but the store was a continuation of the experience, right? I watched He-Man or I watched G.I. Joe, and then I'd get excited to see He-Man or G.I. Joe figures and things like that in the store, right? It'd be like, oh, that's from, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I think what's kind of the magic that's been lost is that there isn't really a lot of, you know, there isn't really a lot of like active continuity between most of what's in Toys R Us's inventory and what actually is like, you know, you're getting exposed to and stuff. So, or at least it's not the same, I guess. It doesn't.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that. Like for example, like some of the toys, like I collect like some of the Sonic Boom toys. I know not everybody likes the Sonic Boom cartoon series, but there's a lot of toys that the Tommy company was selling at Toys R Us that doesn't even appear on the show. I'm like, why did y'all even make these things? I mean clearly it's to make more money. But it's kind of
Yeah.
like no, no, no. I mean, it doesn't draw my attention because it's not like I remember that episode and yeah, that was awesome. I want that. I mean, no, no. Sometimes
Right.
these toy companies make all these random toys, especially Toys R Us
Yeah.
exclusives. And you go, but that wasn't even in the show, and it doesn't get my attention.
Well, what'll be weird is things like, you know, okay, you're selling Daredevil toys and all that other stuff, but Daredevil is like on Netflix targeted at adults. So are you, and I guess that's what I meant by, because I mean, yeah, I mean, certainly like they're still making cartoons, they're still making television shows and movies and stuff with a lot of these characters. And yes, those branded items are showing up in the store. But what's really ridiculous is that a lot of these items that are showing up in the stores are like way out. They're way up. The IP is actually way above the age of the market that you're supposed to be targeting. right?
Mhm.
So if I am a parent and I go into Toys R Us and I see all these Deadpool toys, right? Like, unless I'm a collector and I want to have Deadpool stuff at like my desk or my office or whatever, which maybe I do, I'm probably not going to go there to Christmas shop Deadpool toys for like, my 5-year-old daughter, right? Or my 4-year-old son, right? Maybe I do. I don't know. Like, I'm sure some parents would, but I don't know if that would be most parents, right? They would probably look for something a bit more their
Oh,
kids' speed.
I've seen the cute little plushies about this big of Deadpool. And they make him look so cute with big eyes and his little smile, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Aw."
But I mean, imagine, right? Like, oh, Dad, thanks. Who's this? It's Deadpool. Can I watch the movie? No, not till you're 12. Wait, what? What the hell? What you give me the toy for? So yeah, I think for me, I guess it's all part of the whole, like, it used to be that the stores used to complement an experience. Like if I went to the store, it was because I was excited to your point, Kyle, I was excited to see a Nintendo Entertainment System in the box. And maybe if I was lucky, they had one on display, and maybe there wasn't a line, and maybe I could play and I could
Yeah.
experience it, right? And
Oh, those
that
were the days.
that kind of really excited me. What would excite the hell out of me, is if I went into Toys R Us and if they had the Vive, the Rift, right, and the PlayStation VR all set up, and you could just, right, go nuts with it. Like that to me would be friggin' awesome. I would actually go to a Toys R Us to check that out. Even if I go to a Best Buy, they don't have like a demo of. I mean, maybe they'll have like a set of glasses like running something on a loop that you can like pick up and it's attached to a chain or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's a lot different than what we used to have, where like I can pick up the controller, I can hold it, I can actually play like a game as long as somebody else doesn't come in and boot me. And it's not like you stay there for 4 hours playing the game, but you could still get a pretty good feeling, right? Like, oh, my friend has this, they got Mario on there, check it out, right? Like you talked about before, Lizzie, with Sonic, right? And playing,
Mm.
in the store with the big giant boomerang controller and things like that. Um, I mean, um, I feel like there aren't any, and to be clear, I don't want that experience back. But I'm just pointing to that as an example of like the store having something, right? Okay, maybe I've seen it on television, maybe I've heard about it from a friend or read it in Nintendo Power, but I'm not going to get most of the experience unless I go in the store. And then once I go in the store and I have a fuller experience, if I want to continue that experience, I got to get the product and bring it home.
Mhm.
And I guess for me, that's the part that really seems to be missing in a lot of these brick and mortars right now is I can go kind of see it and everything. But maybe they should take more risks with some of their merchandise and make stuff more interactive, right? Like it's not enough for me to just get the box, flip it around, and take a look. Um, I want to be able to see one open. I want to be able to see like what does it look like? What are the different pieces, parts? How does it work? And I understand they can't do that with every single product, but if you can't, if there's no difference between me just looking at the front and the back of the box physically
Mhm.
versus just looking at a picture of the front of the box and the back of the box online, I'll just do it online. I'll save some money, and sometimes I'll save so much money that I don't even care if when I get it, it's not what I expected. I'm just like, well, for $10 on clearance versus $40 at Walmart or Toys R Us, I'll take my chances, right? And then I just
Oh
deal
yeah.
with whatever the fates send me.
That's true.
But I do want to mention, since we're talking about online and sales and things like that, I'm going to make sure to give them proper attribution. And oh my goodness, folks, if you haven't seen some of the selfies that Oh My Sophie has been posting on the Twitters, you better go on there right now because this legit stopped me in the middle of the show. These are some breathtaking selfies, my
Oh,
friend.
I saw a couple of those pictures.
Yeah, she's got
Ooh.
some Riku selfies from her latest cosplay. Oh my Sophie, oh my, you look amazing.
Yes, you do,
So,
girl.
but back on topic, Wario 64 at Wario 64 on the Twitters posted that Burnout Paradise Remastered is $31.99 on Amazon Prime. So available for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. I think those games are supposed to be either $35 or $40. So that's somewhere between like a $5 to a $7 saving. So you folks might want to check that out if you're looking to get Burnout Paradise Remastered. So yeah.
Oh, by the way, did they ever because I don't think they did get the like SNES and stuff back in stock with Nintendo, the mini.
I'll be honest. There is
Go ahead.
2 hidden at my Walmart. It's like on the bottom shelf in the video game section. I won't say what Walmart, but they have it hidden in the backs, and I've been watching. It's like no one's gotten them yet. So I'm thinking in the back of my mind, like, I get paid this Friday, so will I go get them? Maybe.
Best
If it's
of
still there.
luck. I have yet to see an SNES Mini anywhere but on Craigslist or eBay. I've yet to actually.
I mean, the way they have it, it's in the glass case, right? But it's like against the wall.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll put stuff on top in front of it, so you can't see it.
They got to
Like,
be
no
holding
no
on to
one's seen
that for
it.
somebody. They got to be
Well,
holding that
hopefully
for
not.
somebody.
Hopefully not. If not, I'll just.
But yeah, I don't know, and I guess that's the other. That is the other piece, I guess, that's agitating to me is that stuff that would drive me to a store now is when someplace online goes out of stock, right? But to me, like getting something physical, it's just so wasteful, right? Like I go to a store and then if they don't have it, I go to the next store, and depending on how far away these stores are, right? Like I guess I just don't feel like there's no product left for me to get that I feel so compelled to have that I need to get my ass up out of this chair to go get it. If that
Inventory
makes sense.
searches. Oh no, I know. I worked at Toys R Us. We had to do inventory searches for like bikes or this certain Batman toy, and you have
Yeah.
to make sure you're writing correctly, and it would tell you which stores in the area have them in stock and how many are left in stock. Yeah, that's a pain because then it's not fun anymore. I remember when the amiibos came out, like when the Sonic amiibo was announced. I remember I called and they told me that they had 3. So they put one on hold for me. When I got there, they said, "Oh, that this kid came and bought all 3 of them." You're like, "You son of a bitch! Where are you? I'm gonna find you before you go out that door, and I'm gonna beat you."
I will cut you.
I was mad. I will cut you. I will cut you good.
I will cut you.
I was mad. I like, why'd you sell it to him? He was like, "Oh, well, he wanted 2, but he saw the other one. He goes, "Can I have that one too?" And he was being a little pest about it. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, whatever."
Yeah. So I do want to. We're gonna go ahead and switch. Topics now because we got about. We started a little bit late, so I think we still have about like 10, 15 minutes left. So I want to throw out this topic here. This one about violence in video games. And what's really interesting, I tried to find it before the show. I couldn't find it. When I was in high school, it was when Mortal Kombat and Night Trap came out, and all that hullabaloo about Congress and everything. And folks, if you're not aware, we interviewed Tom Kalinske, the former CEO of Sega. He was the CEO during the time of that whole hubbub. He spoke with us very candidly about his experience during that time, so it's worth checking out. It's episode, I think, 99 of Retro Reload. So, but back on topic, one of the things that I thought was really, interesting here was, so way back when I'm in high school, all the stuff's going on. They're debating whether or not to have a rating system, and then suddenly Sega has a rating system and all this other stuff. I wrote a paper in my, I think it was, I don't remember what it was, like civics or something like that. I don't remember what the social studies or something like that. Anyway, I wrote this paper about violence, and I used, articles from GamePro and articles from Game Informer and all these different, magazines and stuff. And it was awesome because I'm like, these teachers are so dumb. Like, they're going to basically grade me for how well I read my video game magazines. This is like, this is too good to be true. And I'll try to find the paper. And if I find it, I'll scan in I'll scan in the pages for you folks. If you folks in the chat want to see it, if you don't, then don't worry about it. I won't be offended. But this was handwritten, so this is before computers really effectively ran like Windows and Word and everything like that, or at least they did, but nobody had them, right? They're like 286s, 386s. They used floppy disks that look like this, right?
Oh, I remember those days. Ooh.
When I was a kid, right? Like you thought 5 1/4 was a big ass floppy disk. No way. So anyway, so I wrote I think it was a 2 or 3 page, essay on violence and all that other stuff. And what was the evidence then? And granted, this was like, we're talking the 90s, right? Early to mid 90s. There wasn't really a lot of evidence there to support whether or not violence in video games had an impact on kids and things like that. And the games at the time, games like Night Trap, games like Mortal Kombat, games like Doom, right, where you're running around with a chainsaw killing Hellspawn and things like that. There was terrorism then, there was bombings, there was, people killing people with guns and, things like that. I remember there being, violence there. And I remember, hearing about all this stuff, like in my mind, Night Trap had to be this mind-blowingly like terrible, like there's naked women in there getting beat up and raped and attacked and all. And I'd never played the game. Like I couldn't afford a Sega CD or a 3DO or anything, so I didn't know. So like fast forward to like I'm 37 years old. I get my hands on a 3DO on eBay and I've got, Night Trap, and I pop this in and I'm like, okay, finally time to see what all the hubbub is and everything. And I'm like, dude, seriously? like seriously? This is clearly just a campy, B movie. Like there was no, I mean, Mortal Kombat, I could kind of see. You're ripping people's heads off with their spine showing and all that other stuff, which was like, whoa. But I laughed at Night Trap more than I kind of jumped. I will say that the bathroom scene where they capture the blonde, that is pretty jarring the first time you see it. But no more jarring than watching like a rated PG-13 horror movie would be, right? Like it wasn't what was, I guess, jarring was, yes, like, okay, this was a video game and like putting myself in the context of when the game was released. But taken in the context of the whole thing that Night Trap is, like it didn't seem inappropriate. It didn't seem out of place. I have seen games way more inappropriate than Night Trap, certainly. So it seemed like much ado about nothing. So now I don't know how much of that is 30 years now, 20 years to 30 years of me being desensitized through starts with Mortal Kombat, then it's Night Trap, then it's XYZ, and now like Resident Evil, I just don't even flinch anymore. But I guess I never grew up to be an axe murderer. I've never run around Walmart with an actively running chainsaw, like mistaking people for Hellspawn.
That sounds exactly like something an axe murderer would say, Chris.
I know, right? I know. So I guess I'm still like I don't believe that. I certainly don't believe somebody, like, unless they're severely maladjusted, I don't believe that a properly parented, properly raised, well-adjusted individual is going to go off and do something because they played it in a video game.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't jump on turtles and kill them on purpose, do we? We don't do that. We don't go to Best Buy and bust TVs because this is what Sonic
run around eating shrooms.
They
Some
do.
people do.
But we don't jump on turtles and squish them. We don't go to Best Buy and bust over TVs. We don't do that either. Sonic didn't teach us that. Mario didn't teach us that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, no. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Kyle. What's your
if you got a thought, go ahead and finish it, because I'm gonna
go right ahead. Go right ahead. I shared enough already.
That was actually something Trevor Noah on the Daily Show had kind of brought up, was his stuff, is that they were going into all those arguments, and one of the points that he made And of course, it's something we can elaborate on a little more, but he's like, if video games really made people more violent and turned them into killers, then why haven't like good video games made people go out and give to charity or, go on these adventures or whatever,
Right.
and I mean, I agree with what he says that all media to a certain extent it's going to affect us, just like reading a book. You read a book, you're introduced to ideas. Ultimately you have to decide, how am I going to think through these ideas? Do I agree with them? Do I disagree with them? I've said it multiple times, I really like the Danganronpa series, and that has had an effect on like how I see certain things and how I think about some things, because it introduced those ideas and it forces you as the player to interact with them and think about them. And it seems like the studies, at least in a quick Google search that we can find, there are some studies that have tried to link playing games with aggression. Now, I'm just saying, there's a reason you get aggressive when you're playing Asteroids, because that is a frustrating game. That is more frustrating than some that I've played. So, of course, you have aggression after playing that. And there's another article I found where they took MRIs of brain scans when showing people who had played video games over a long time pictures, and they found that those parts of the brain that were responsible for showing like empathy, they triggered the same way as a person who doesn't play as much video games over that time. So it seems like something we definitely need more studies for. Right now, there's nothing that says if you have someone that plays video games, they're going to turn into a violent axe murder. Now, I'm a big believer in the fact that like me playing a certain game, reading a certain book, or listening to music, there is going to be, like I said, a certain way where you're going to be exchanging ideas with that. And ultimately, you have to decide how you're going to let those ideas affect you, how you're thinking about those ideas. But I also believe that people actively go and find those kinds of media that either agree with our ideas or they get something out of that they're looking for, rather than saying, I listened to the CD and it just totally changed my perspective on life. Like, I was not looking for that, which can happen. But I think a lot of times people are consuming types of media that they want to consume for some reason, or they're looking for it for some reason.
And to your point, right? To your point, I'm sure some of this will sound like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth, but because there are certainly games that have affected me, right? I talked about Brothers. That game affected me. I talked about Life is Strange. That game affected me.
Absolutely.
Certainly gaming in general, right, influenced me to become an engineer and things like that. But Resident Evil has never, right, like it scared me before. It shocked me, right, before. Certainly, maybe it's desensitized me to seeing artistic violence and things like that. But I think people's biggest argument is either that it encourages this behavior, or sponsors or endorses this behavior, or that it desensitizes us. I would believe that more if, okay, I played Resident Evil, saw all this horrific stuff, and then went and saw like, a riot somewhere where somebody's getting like abused. Like when I saw the people that got driven over by that person in the car at the rally and everything, that just put my stomach in knots, right? Like how a human being could do something like that. Now, that said, I played the shit out of Burnout and out of Crazy Taxi and all this stuff, and so in a video game form, I kind of expect that in an open world I'm going to be able to like Infamous or whatever, right? I could go around beating the hell out of people or being good or whatever, but still, if I saw the things in the game in real life, to your point, like it didn't impact me in a way where like, oh, that dude over there beating up that old lady, perfectly normal. Right? Saw it in a video game. Like, no, that's not. I would be like, dude, what the hell? Like, you want to go? Like, maybe maybe I'm just trading her getting pummeled for me getting pummeled, but better her than me, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think you're right. Like how we process, how we internalize is a very complicated thing. Are we going to that medium because we're looking for it and we just find what we're looking for? Or do we go into that medium kind of not knowing what to expect and then get, affected by it? I think sometimes it's a bit of each, right? Like I go to a Marvel movie, you know, the things that folks are saying about games, I could say the same about movies and books and music, right?
Right.
So just because I go and I watch every single Marvel movie, right? And does that mean, you know, I'm going to be more prone to handling, you know, taking the law into my own hands and handling things in a violent manner, right?
Right. Well, and sorry, I don't mean to
No,
interrupt.
go right ahead. I'm out of.
I'll let you take a drink of your Mickey D's cup there. And I mean, again, a couple more things. Like one study I was looking at, they were looking at like children who played it M-rated games, but now in this brief overview, it wasn't the actual article, but it didn't mention like what those games were. So, for example, we played Halo, okay, but you're not killing people in Halo; you're killing fictional aliens with like blue and orange blood, and
Right.
stuff, which is, I guess I'll say it could be a big conceptual difference for a kid between killing an alien and like killing a person, right?
Right.
Again, not saying that there is totally a difference there, but I could see the potential for one. And you know, it's other stuff too, like in the White House video, which I believe has been delisted at this point. For those of you who don't know, they did release a video of like some violent video game clips, which were mostly Call of Duty, Dead Before Daylight or something, and a couple other things.
Tom should have gone over there. He'd been like,
Tom is actually Tom Kalinske. Honestly, Tom Kalinske, I've been following him on Twitter since he was on the show. He's been very vocal about this. About he thinks that this is just ass hattery at its finest.
Right.
You know, looking for problems rather than looking at the obvious problems. You know,
Right.
I definitely think that, you know, I feel what's interesting is. And Will Tendo says, "Give me that essay." He wants to see the essay that I wrote. So I'll be going through the garage and trying to find that. Hopefully, I didn't shred it. I hope I didn't. I hope I kept it. But if I find it, I'll scan it and put it up so folks can look. What I thought was really interesting is looking at it as a kid when I wrote the essay and looking at it now as an adult. Right? Like I'm not really all that different from you know my family. My stepfather was you know of the belief that, you know, you world proof the kid, you don't kid proof the world. Right. So he was of the you know, okay, on the one hand, I'm not going to have you watching rated R and rated X movies and all this other stuff, right? You know, once you're out of the house, that's up to you, but when you're in my house, right, like start watching rated R, you know, 13, you can start watching PG-13, etc. So he kind of stuck to those guns. When it came to games, though, you know, and we didn't have graphics like what we had now. Like we're talking like Atari and Nintendo were in my house, right? So, and then when we got computers, to your point, right, it was more fantastical violence. I remember my stepdad, me, and my three sisters, right? We actually built like. At one point we'd built multiple computers in the house and we had like a LAN set up where we could play Unreal Tournament, right? And our family, right there. We lived out in the country, right? We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have much, but we were able to like cobble together these like computers that could like barely run Unreal Tournament. And then like we'd hook them all in. I was using BNC. It was like coaxial internet or coaxial cable, like hooked into the back, and you have to put this cap on the end so that it knows where the network stops and where the network begins. Again, probably dating myself, but you know, and the cable was like literally like I crawled under the house to run the cable from like one area to the next area, and we drilled a hole in the floor to like run the cable and everything. But when we did that, you know, we were able to play even when we played online because we had like a really crappy like phone internet line, like DSL or something like that. But internally our ping time was like practically zero because we were all local, and sometimes we'd just play capture the flag, or we'd play, you know, we'd play deathmatch or something like that. And my dad wasn't really worried about my baby sister playing Doom and running around with a chainsaw or with a like firing nuclear missiles at each other or whatever, right? We would just have a blast on the weekend, you know, doing these things. And the experience that I took away from that was how fun it was to do something mutually enjoyable as a family. Like that really, we weren't the kind of family that went to Toys R Us. We didn't have the money. We weren't the kind of family that, that went on these elaborate vacations or anything like that. Neither of my parents could ever get the time off to do that kind of stuff. But we were the kind of family that could take some time to just kind of blow off some steam, right? And have some fun. Playing the same pirated copy of Unreal Tournament. So, so, so that was what I took away from it, was time with my family. And one of the funniest memories that I have is my dad, me and my sisters. A lot of times we were at odds with each other, but this one time we all tag teamed to take out my dad in Unreal Tournament, and he just could not. We were catching him we were camped at every single spawn spot, and we were just headshot. He was getting so frustrated. He gets up and he's like, "You sons of bitches!" He lifts up his mouse and he slams it down on the table, and he slammed the mouse so hard the mouse just shattered. Right.
Oh, no.
And then he was like, "Okay, I'm done." Right. And he was very embarrassed. He was very like ashamed. Like he's supposed to set the example for us. And here we got him to like just burst out swearing and like destroy his mouse. And so the downside is it was a couple months before he would play games with us again. But the amazing part was like here was this violent game, right? That had actually given me and my sisters, right, this opportunity to kind of rally together against, a common target. And so my dad. So anyway, I don't see anybody like, I don't think there's like maybe huge amounts of stories like that, but family related, but certainly, I knew folks that, friends that got together that would do LAN parties and stuff like that and play, Unreal Tournament or Doom or, whatever these things were. And so I don't really see those games as much different than the Minecraft of today, right? Or playing, games like Halo, right? Or games like Destiny, online. The graphics have gotten better, sure. The stories have gotten more elaborate. The cinematography has become amazing. In some cases, except for Destiny, the stories have gotten really good. So,
quick little jab in there.
Quick little jab in there for that. I remember my brother-in-law was like, "Dude, this game's gonna change your life." Like he's like, and so I'm expecting it to be like, this amazing thing. So like I'm over at his house or over at his apartment, and like I'm watching him play it for a little bit, and then he gives me the controller, and I play it for a little bit, and the controls were good. I'll give it. The controls were some of the nicest, good response, good feeling first-person shooter controls I'd ever used. But after about like 15 minutes of like just like shooting at stuff, I was like, okay, what happens next? Like what's the story? And he goes, oh, it's not really like that intro is just to kind of get you pumped for the game. Like nothing, there's not really much story in the game unless you like buy these cards or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I just run around and like shoot people, rack up the highest count, or I control some. I'm like, this is basically Unreal Tournament only reskinned. Okay, I'm done. I didn't run off and like start killing people or maiming people, or I didn't feel this need to. I appreciated the time with my brother-in-law, and I think it's the same thing when I go to see a movie. Like I'll go to see a movie, and what I get out of the movie is, oh, that was a nice movie, or that was a good movie, or maybe the movie gave me something to think about or talk about, but with my friends and with my family, right? The actual experiences, to your point, Kyle, how did I internalize it? How did I process it? And how do I talk about things? So
right.
There's a really good book. I don't remember the author's name, and I don't have the book right here, but the book is titled Reality is Broken. And it basically says that rather than us worrying about what's in games and trying to actively stop, like, hey, don't put this in a game, don't put that in a game. Maybe we should take a look at, to your point, Kyle, like why are people going into these game worlds? Like, why would I go into a game world? where I can blow people away. Well, it's
Yeah.
probably not because you really want to blow people away. You know, the writer of this book would say it's probably because, oh, thank you very much, buddy. It is
Oh.
from Jane McGonigal,
Ooh.
right? And she goes to different places and talks and speaks and everything. But her basic premise, right? I'll just read from the back here, right? It says with 174 million gamers in the United States alone, we now live in a world where every generation will be a gamer generation. But why, Jane McGonigal asks, should games be used for escapist entertainment alone? She shows how we can leverage the power of games to fix what is wrong with the real world, from social problems like depression and obesity to global issues like poverty and climate change, and introduces us to cutting edge games that are already changing the business, education, and nonprofit worlds. So, she
I
basically
think
says
about
reality is broken, reveals how we can harness the power of games to boost global happiness. So, one of the things that she does say in the book a couple of times, she talks about how, just like movies, just like books, just like, um, like board games and things like that, video games offer us an escape from reality, or they allow us to immerse ourselves in a real, like if it's a nonfiction, right? You can
Right.
immerse yourself in a past reality or a present reality, but basically people are choosing to divest themselves from reality and invest themselves into these mediums, as a means of release, as a means of maybe expanding their mind, or as a means of them experiencing something that they can't experience in the real world. And so she says the two questions that we should really be asking as makers of that content should be, if somebody's leaving the real world to come to yours, what is it that you do want them to take back with them into the world? Because I can leave the real world for a while. Eventually, I have to come back to hydrate and to, eat something, right? And to take
yeah.
care of other matters. But I'm not necessarily going to stay in this world forever, even if I desperately want to. So, and even if I do desperately want to, like some people never want to leave World of Warcraft, some people never want to leave Star Wars Battlefront, they never want to leave Destiny or whatever. We should ask, why is that? And we should see if there's a way for us to give folks something to kind of take back with them into the real world. Is it that you feel powerless? Well, maybe the game, through its narrative or its story or character progression, can teach you some ways that you could go back and think about of how to not feel so powerless in your day-to-day life, right? I don't think any of us, well, I can't say any. I, I think many of us don't pick up a gun in Call of Duty or whatever, play a bunch of rounds with our friends and think, oh, the purpose of this is to empower me to go take guns and like shoot people, right?
Right.
But like let's take Call of Duty for example, right? Like Call of Duty, what motivates war? What prompts war? Right? What alternative strategies are there to you could make a game where like the purpose is kill or be killed repeatedly, infinite respawns, etc. But if you were to make games where there is more strategic elements to it, or maybe sometimes it's actually more strategic to get through without firing a single shot, right? Now granted it becomes a different game then, but she was really getting at, what people bring into it will be part of it. What people experience while they're in there will be part of it. And we usually think about those things a lot.
Right.
What we don't think about it is, what are they going to take out of it? And she's not claiming that they're going to take out of it they become an axe murderer, but she is hitting it more from the angle of like, when you play Life is Strange, a game about making choices and the impact that those choices can have on upstream and downstream events, right?
Yeah.
And other people. I found it very hard to play the game Life is Strange without 90% of what happened in that game. I have never and probably will never experience in my real life.
Hmm.
However, it did teach me a thing or two and give me enough of an experience to where I can empathize the hell out of situations where I encounter people that have dealt with those situations. Or if I see those situations on TV, I can see now I can see how something escalated into something like that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And that's just a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Lizzie, we definitely want to give you a chance to get in here as well. Um, it, like you were mentioning, Chris, and this is one thing with Life is Strange in particular, I think does a good job, is that as well as even the Persona games, is that one of the things I enjoy watching is how you can hate a character at first in a game, and as you as the player progress through that story and watch their character development, you may come to actually enjoy the character or understand where the character is coming from. I found, especially with like Nate in Life is Strange. So for anyone who hasn't played, basically he's sort of a bully character. And what a story goes into is that, I suppose light spoilers here, the bully is usually someone that's getting bullied by a bigger bully, and Persona actually goes into that as well. And so there's a lot of potential there for telling those stories as well, and that's kind of changed to a certain degree how I think about when I approach people, or kind of humanizing people when I wouldn't kind of normally, I guess, see them that way. And I think one of the big problems, there's a big generational gap in how people understand games. And no offense to any of our older viewers or anything like that. I'm not trying to insult anybody or anything, but there's a big difference in, especially like my parents, how they understood games, because back then when they started, it was Pac-Man, arcade, Atari stuff, right? And you couldn't approach those games the same way you approach something Life is Strange, with assessing that as like a philosophical narrative, right? Just because games back then, they were made for, of course, getting quarters from people and for entertainment. And there was narrative, comic books and stuff, but not in the same way they are now. Now they're more like movies, and even classic novels, right? So there's a big difference. And I think this is kind of one of the problems with how, we'll say, political people are approaching these, is that they're not understanding them in the same way that I think a lot of people approach games nowadays, and how they understand them.
It's still not truly considered an art form.
Yeah.
Which I've, for a long time, even back in like the days of Nintendo, I believe like music, we consider that an art form. Graphics, we consider that an art form, right? Story, we consider that an art form. But somehow putting all those together and then crafting the experience so that you can control it, we don't consider an art form. That's complete bullshit to me.
And
it's like an ultimate art form.
And again, that's kind of going back to that generational divide to a certain extent, because like our professor, I think he would have been more your age, Chris, and we were taking a class, which I mentioned a couple of times on here, about like philosophy of game design, and that's one of the things, like, we're touching it on, and that both him and myself, I think, are big believers in, is you can treat a game like you can treat the Odyssey or a great classic novel,
absolutely,
like, and approach it with that critical eye. And so hopefully people come to understand that more as well, and kind of see things that way. Now, there are positives and negatives to that. But it is one thing that I think is important to understand. And just one more thing that I wanted to plug on here. So we're talking about that difference, especially between playing a game and experiencing like the violence in the game or something in real life, right? And one thing I found, like I had never seen Hamlet before on stage. I never seen it, never read it. But of course I played violent video games since I was like 10 or even before that. So I went to this play, and as part of the ending of it, they have all this fighting on stage where they're like really going at people and, pretending to fight. They were like literally pretending to like snap people's necks and just like stab them in the guts and shit. And I'm telling you, I was like physically shocked a little bit, because and I understand to a certain extent like the desensitizing thing, but even when I was watching that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. It took me aback a little bit. And so I think people will get that impression that like people are just like would see that and go, oh, well, I saw someone's head get chopped off in a game, so this doesn't affect me. Like there is a very distinct difference. When you're going into the game and you're going, oh, I just saw my friend in half, versus even something that is fake on the stage, but it's a very different reaction. So I think it's important to keep that in mind as well, that there's a big difference between just consuming something like that, and people are still very much able to have a different reaction when you actually get something that is real, even fake, but still acted out. in
And I
front
think
of
a
you.
part of it is that whole like, what I mean, one could even argue like, okay, I play Life is Strange and I take
Mhm.
certain things away from it and discuss certain things and internalize certain things. I play Resident Evil and I do similar, right? But how much of that is really like what I was looking to incorporate versus what, when I play Resident Evil, I want to be kind of shocked, I want to be kind of like scared and jolted and all that other stuff.
Right.
Not I don't take it as training for how I ought to be, right? Like when I picked up Life is Strange, I knew that this was a game about making choices and it was supposed to be a deep character narrative, and I like deep character narratives and I like kind of mulling around different choices. So it's not like I played Life is Strange and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, my mind is like blown that suddenly like life is so intricate and there's so many. It's like, you know what I mean? It's not like when I
Right.
played Resident
Right.
Evil that I was like, oh my goodness. So that's okay, cool. That's what I always wanted to know about. If I rip somebody's head starting from here, and then will it come clean off the neck, or is it gonna like leave a? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's not like I went into Resident Evil for a certain entertainment value, a certain shock. I expected it to shock me. I expected it to scare me. I expected it to affect me, and I expect each one to have to push harder to affect me in the same way or greater. Um, when I'm playing, I guess another good example is Detroit: Become Human.
Mhm.
Mm.
I am so looking forward to this game. You can't even imagine. Um, and I know that it's going to be mostly quick time events, right? And like which way, storytelling. And I'm totally fine with that because the first couple trailers I saw, I was just like, I want to be immersed in that world. I want to be going through some of those thought puzzles. And
Right.
I want to have these really engaging discussions with my wife about like, oh yeah, like what if machines became self-aware and blah 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 and all this stuff. So I'm not going into it like hoping to learn how to think and weigh social issues like from scratch. Like I'm already somebody that's
Mhm.
built to think about and weigh social issues, I guess, if that makes sense. So
Right.
to your point, I do
Mhm.
think it's a legit thing to be worried about of, if somebody is already violent by their very nature and is somebody that's kind of like a twisted individual in terms of gets off on hurting people.
Right.
I feel like video games, books, movies, I feel like they're kind of like beer. They're going to amplify whatever's already there,
Right.
right? Like the beer is not responsible necessarily, for you becoming violent. The violence was in there, just right.
Yeah. You drink a beer, knowing what you're potentially going to do. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and the same thing. One more thing, and then I promise I'll shut up. So,
No, go ahead. Yeah, we'll
um,
give we'll
but
give Lizzie some time, but go
that's
ahead. You're
yeah.
gonna show near, right?
Yes, I am going to show near. Because I started playing a little more of it, and I think this is one thing Detroit's going to get into. That again, you can read a book from a character's perspective, you can watch a movie from a character's perspective, but you can never actually like be that character. And I think that's one of the interesting things about near that I've ran into is that uh, like this topic of how do we understand non-human life forms, and do they have liberty, do they have freedom, what's the responsibility of a creator? But being able to play near, it's very different because as that player, even though you're not the character, you're experiencing the same things that the game is experiencing, and you have to deal with those issues how that character would deal with that, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
rather than being able, like in Mass Effect, you're a human in there. So when the question comes up like do all these robots, should they have freedom from the Korean creators, and you can kind of go, well, I'm not a robot, I don't really have any skin in the game. But when you're playing as the character or you're experiencing those things, that has potential to change your view. But
Yeah.
it also gives you a different perspective that other mediums just aren't going to be able to give you. So
Yeah,
go
I
back to what
agree.
you, yeah.
So, Lizzie, what do you what's your feel on violent video games? You think we
Well,
should ban them all?
oh God, no, gee whiz, no, no, because like I mean, I'm a violent, angry girl, so and I don't blame Sonic for that at all.
So
Now,
we need to
was
keep
that
her
because
away
you
from
played
Call of
games?
Duty.
No, no, I mean, okay, well, I'll give you some examples. You'll have to like YouTube it, but there was a guy who actually videotaped his friend playing Call of Duty or something, and he would just be screaming and yelling and throwing the controller at the TV. And I've seen those kind of videos on YouTube. And I remember one time I was staffing at an anime convention, and I was invited to hang out in this room with like some of the male staffers, but they were not nice guys, and they already had some people in there, and they were playing Call of Duty because it was all 4 screens. And
Yeah.
when the guys turned around and saw me, and he was like, "What the hell is this girl doing here? She's not welcome in here." And I'm like, "Chill, we were just on the couch talking." But every now and then he would turn around and be like, "You're not gonna stay in here, are you? You
Oh my
cannot be in here."
goodness.
And
And Call of Duty, it's Call of Duty's fault.
Yeah.
yeah, it's called Duty. It's something like that. This kid was a total ass. I mean, he was just
Right.
angry.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I've seen. I think the other thing is I do not play online video gaming. People have told me that there's a Sonic video game coming that's going to be online play. I
Yeah.
will never join that because I have seen for myself. I have heard things from the Minecraft
Yeah.
and from like Call of Duty Online playing. I've heard things I never want to hear again.
Now that's
Listen,
amazing,
people
though, right?
can be
Listen,
mean
listen,
sometimes,
folks.
yeah.
Right, listen to what she's saying, because I think this is telling, right? Like, and I think that there's a deeper discussion here that unfortunately we don't have time for. But what I thought was really interesting is when you talked about, because I don't online game either, for largely the same reason as you. Like, I don't have anything against first person games. I don't have anything. I certainly play a fair share of them. I love the Metroid Prime series. I like Gears of War and things like that as a single player experience and things like that. I don't mind playing Star Wars Battlefront or Doom or whatever with my son in co-op mode, but online, all the material in the game, the graphics, the gore, if it's there, the violence and everything is the same online versus offline. But I don't want to deal with the people.
Yeah.
It's the people. It's the attitude of the people and what they're bringing into the game that I don't want to deal with. It's not the actual content of the game, and it's really telling because they actually have to say in the ESRB rating, right? They say like ESRB rating does not cover online play, right? Like what? Like they know, like it's the people, the social dynamic of what people bring into the game, not necessarily what's already there, but what people are going to bring in that they have to worry about. Really being offensive, really being raw, really being jarring, and I think
really
it gets
nasty little 10-year-old boys that you're like, where did you learn those words?
Exactly. Does your mommy know that you're like up at 11 o'clock playing Call of Duty, saying those words?
Does your mommy know that you're saying nasty things to women in their 20s and 30s, and you're trying to send pictures of your dicky? Don't do that. That's disgusting.
Yeah. So I mean that I think is more, it gets back to, I guess, the argument of like, what did people,
Donald Trump should see that. Be like, oh, see,
he'll just build a wall around it.
Build a digital wall.
Digital. He'll build a firewall, a huge firewall, the greatest firewall ever. He'll build a firewall, and the kid sending the pic is going to pay for it.
We'll build a huge firewall, folks,
Yes.
and Activision is going to pay for it. They're going to pay for it. Make single player great again.
Yes, we're going to make single player great again. Great. It'll be great. But and I don't mean to offend anybody that might be a Trump supporter. I'm not intending to get political or take one side or the other in terms of Democrat versus Republican versus Libertarian or Green Party or whatever. But really just more of a, like, I always get nervous, right? Because you don't see anybody talking about the violence in the movies.
Yeah,
right? Like how many friggin' superhero movies do we have out now? Like literally every superhero imaginable has come out. And in every single superhero one, you see just stuff that defies like logic, reason, and physics. Like if I was to take my basis of real life on movies, right? I had a discussion with my son the other day. I'm like, son, you realize that if somebody was to punch you, you're not really going to go flying 20 feet and hit a wall, bounce off, and then just get up and be okay, right? And if that did happen for some reason, you realize you would hit the wall, disintegrate, right? And they'd be scraping you off the floor. He's like, yeah, of course, like that's all fake. Like he wasn't like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, really?
Right.
Like, I didn't know that. But so I mean, watching all these movies where like just about every single movie, if you took out every fighting scene where there's an impossible punch or kick or impact or whatever, 90% of the movies made in the last 5 years would just be like empty of action sequences.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's no discussion about, like the violence of, people being worried that that's going to lead to kids fighting in school and this and that and everything. Or at least I'm not saying that there's no argument, because I'm sure in some communities there are, in some households there probably are. But at the same time, there's nobody saying, and that's why somebody walked into a Starbucks and judo kicked somebody in the face. Right.
Yeah.
So clearly there's a separation between fantasy and reality that I believe most of us are able to actually make. And I'd be more worried about when folks are playing online, right, than the folks I'm playing with. I'd be more worried about than the actual content of the game I'm playing, because I'm coming in the game just wanting to have some good, clean fun. So I guess what I'm getting at is that these violent games, if they're going to get a bad rap, it's probably going to be because of what people have brought into the games, right? Not what the games bred in the people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
So
Yeah, because I played all kinds of games. I mean, when I staff anime conventions, sometimes I have to be in those video game rooms, and they stink, man. I've seen guys in there for hours, and they do not get up and shower or do anything. They just like stink of something, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna have to deal with it and just walk around. Oh God, okay. But
right.
I mean, they all
choking up over there. Black.
They're like, man. But I mean, they're in a public setting. They're in a huge room with other gamers, and they're all cool.
Yeah.
But
Right.
versus that other guy, when I was in a hotel room with other staffers, you're like, you got some anger issues. See, video games really are not the thing. It's the kids. The kids are angry, and they get their hands on this, and now makes me more angry because, like for example, if they can't get past the level, they're screaming every name in the book, and they throw the controller at the TV. They're kicking stuff over because they're frustrated because they
I
couldn't get
thought we were
past
going
this
to talk
level.
about me.
Oh, I thought that was Jeremy. Who throws the controller?
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But I've done that. I've gotten mad at my Sonic levels and thrown the controller and it's always Tails' fault. It's not Sonic. It's Tails. It's something stupid and
Tails makes me rage quit sometimes.
so
So,
yeah.
folks, what do you think? Do you think that violent video games make violent people, or do you think violent people enjoy violent video games? I tend to think, that folks are going to bring into it what they want to bring into it. They're going to take out of it what they would like to take out of it. You might be surprised here and there, but I think, I don't necessarily think, you play Mortal Kombat and see Scorpion, light somebody on fire, or you see Sub-Zero rip somebody's heads off. I don't see people walking over to Target and like setting people on fire and like ripping their head off, that kind of thing. So I think that it's one of those. I do think that there is something to be said for like expose children to things that they're ready for and they're appropriate for, but at the same time, don't world proof your kid. Don't kid proof the world. So,
Exactly.
but that's my personal opinion. So, also, how do you feel about Toys R Us? Don't be shy if you're really kind of jonesing for it and you're getting all misty eyed and everything. Share us in the comments in the doodly doo. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what are some of your favorite Toys R Us experiences or moments. I would definitely love to hear them. This is Retro Reload, so I can get people having nostalgia for Toys R Us and what it was and what it represented to them as a kid. I just don't get anybody having an attachment to them in their current form. Certainly if you go in the store, there's not enough people attached to them, or at least attaching their cash to them to keep them alive. So I think that it's probably about past time that these guys move on. So, but leave me your opinion. You don't have to agree.
Yeah.
So, Troy, my friend, welcome to the show. We will catch you next week.
We'll catch you on the replay.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
There
The
you
flute
go.
flop. We'll catch you on the flute flop.